Can I tell you something personal?
It's up to you. Can I tell you something personal?
Yeah.
Recently I've been on a bit of a Steven Soderbergh binge, as he was a director whose work I hadn't properly delved into, and there was a lot of films to go through. I still have quite a few to get through, I'm by no means finished, but from what I have seen, I'm quite enthusiastic. Soderbergh is a notable filmmaker because he quite famously doesn't employ a reoccurring directorial style throughout his films. Rather, each of his films have a fine-tuned style befitting that specific project. Unlike a Tarantino or a Wes Anderson, who have rather blatantly reoccurring cinematic personalities, Soderbergh seems to completely reinvent himself on every project he embarks on. The only thing that remains consistent throughout his filmography is that he always changes it up. It's a very egoless approach to filmmaking. He prioritises the cinematic evocativeness of the individual film rather than the thematic cohesion of his overall body of work. His films commit to utterly different styles and tones, each requiring a unique attention to detail to get right. For instance, in early 2025, he made two movies, one being a experimental haunted house film and the other being this tightly written, gritty, British spy drama, and both films knew exactly what they were doing and provided engaging experiences within the genres that they were working with. Black Bag, the spy thriller, that in particular is one of the best spy movies I've seen in years. So it was this promise of competence and variety that drew me to seek out more of his films. I checked out Erin Brockovich, which was a very accessible, engaging, true story film. I checked out Traffic, which was this gritty ensemble piece about the war on drugs. And then there was The Limey, which was this extremely experimental, introspective piece about this Cockney criminal who goes to LA to investigate the death of his daughter. All were just very special, very competent, very effective in their own right. However, one particularly incredible film that I saw from him, the one that's, as of right now, my absolute favourite of his, was Sex, Lies and Videotape, actually his first feature-length film.
I don't know, I got this really strange feeling and just didn't want him to touch me.
This movie is beautiful, period. It released in 1989, it stars James Spader, Andy McDowell, Peter Gallagher and Laura San Giacomo. It's these four cast members, these four characters that the film stays firmly tethered to. It's an ensemble piece. It's essentially this exquisite character study about the four of them where it explores what it is to be intimate with another human being. It's a comprehensive dissection of intimacy and sexuality and a showcase of how the two correlate but also diverge from one another. It puts forth a lot of interesting notions about what true intimacy actually is. What does it take for two people to form a meaningful connection? The film explores these ideas again through the four main characters. It effortlessly draws comparisons between them without the need for exposition. When it does use dialogue, it's extremely authentic and humanist.
Yeah, I'm self-conscious. I'm not in the same way that you are, though.
Me? You think I'm self-conscious?
What?
Each of the characters have their own unique mentalities around sex and intimacy, and these are things which are all expressed through the characters' behaviours and their actions. It's a film where we observe these people for 1 hour and 40 minutes. On a plot level, not that much happens, but on an introspective level, quite a lot of ground is covered. The scenes are slow but totally transfixing because of that naturalistic acting and dialogue.
I tried once. It just seems so stupid. I don't know.
And not only is the film about intimacy, but the filmmaking itself lends for an intimate experience for the viewer. The line delivery is quiet and mumbly in ways you don't often see in movies. It lends some realism to the piece, as in real life people aren't always talking at a volume that a microphone will be able to pick up. People speak rather low and slur the words a lot.
I'm sorry, we don't let people smoke in the house, but if you'd like to, we could
No, I
go
can quit.
outside.
I can wait.
Most scenes are very quiet, music is scarcely used. In fact, you could say that the only score is the room ambience. This all places even more emphasis on the conversations.
As soon as you've got a ring on your finger, you start getting the most spectacular attention from the opposite gender.
That's bullshit.
He turned out to be really this character.
Because of all these factors, every line of dialogue is honestly mesmerizing to listen to. The film is almost dreamlike and soothing.
It's kind of hard to believe. I mean, you just seem so different now.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I would imagine we are pretty different now.
Above all else, it is intimate and personal. You are there with the characters. You are having these personal conversations with them. And so the film is always slow, but never boring, because you are at all times being lulled by what's on screen. The film honestly flies by. You watch a few beautifully presented scenes and all of a sudden you're already at the halfway point. It's a lovely experience. And it also has to be said, and when I say this, I'm not meaning to say that the film is being exploitative or titillating, but this film is quite sexy, honestly. Again, the presentation makes for a very intimate viewing experience. You have all of these characters whispering, talking about these very deep things. It's all so down to earth, fly on the wall, and emotionally raw. It's sexy. In a three-dimensional sense, it is sexy. It's not just there to arouse the viewer. It just does a terrific job at simulating that very real and almost spiritual human experience.
I thought about you. Have you thought about me?
It's great. You like that, don't you?
I think it's
yeah.
You know, Mulholland Drive's pretty sexy. Anyway, enough gooning. I know what you guys are like. The way this film communicates itself in general is just inherently artful. It's by far the most avant-garde of all the Soderbergh films that I've seen so far. I was really surprised. Very art house and French New Wave-esque almost. In this, Soderbergh uses a lot of unconventional editing choices to concisely and subtly get things across. There's a good amount of these poetically overlapping scenes which are amazing. Dialogue from one initial scene will act as voiceover for another point in time. The matchup of the visuals and the audio is so purposeful and evocative regarding what the film is about. Comparisons are always being drawn between the four characters, and for the most part, these comparisons are communicated through the visuals and the editing. It's cross-cutting that naturally conveys so much about the film's ideas and themes. In the starting moments of the film, we get a therapy scene with Anne where she's talking about her intimacy issues relating to her marriage, and the dialogue is intercut with scenes of her husband going to have an affair with Anne's sister. And with that, immediately, it's so emotionally provocative. There's so many implications to be drawn from that scene.
I've never really been that much into sex. I mean, I like it and everything, but...
You have the initial juxtaposition of this very sexually charged scene of this affair. It's very cynical, and then you have this woman revealing very sensitive details about her intimacy issues, and it all makes for an immediately transfixing story. Honestly, I could watch these cross-cutting scenes with this whispery dialogue all day long.
Are you still keeping these thoughts from John?
Yeah.
Are you afraid of his reaction, of his finding you silly at thinking these things?
No, it's not that. It's just...
This might go without saying, but yeah, the performances are pretty great. One of the standouts is James Spader, you know, Ultron. Fuck you. Arguably, he's the main character. He's this odd artist type with these deep-seated intimacy issues, but he's fascinating to watch.
My problem? Do I have a problem? I look around me in this town and I see John and Cynthia and you, and I feel comparatively healthy.
Spader is marvellous in the role. There's no doubt in your mind that he is this person. It's as if they just picked some weird guy off the street. Oh, there's a weird artist guy, you're in this film now.
She? Who's she?
I'm sorry, that isn't what I was...
He is humanist, relatable in many ways. There is a lot of catharsis to be had from observing this character. Definitely the best James Spader performance I've ever seen, but there's not much to go off really, is there? Like again, fucking Ultron. Andie MacDowell is incredible. She's also arguably the main character of the film. Andie plays Anne, who is a somewhat jaded or depressed housewife who has lost all interest in sex. She starts the film quite adrift and melancholy. Anne's sister, Cynthia, however, is quite the opposite. She's very sexually active, very extroverted, almost a bit of a floozy as she's quite immature in how she conducts her sex life. She's played by Laura San Giacomo, who's an actress that I was completely unfamiliar with before watching this, and that almost made it better because I just saw her as the character. And again, she is also wonderful in this. She plays a very flawed and impulsive person, but as you learn more about her, you gain so much sympathy for her. And finally, there's Peter Gallagher, who plays Anne's husband John, and he's easily the least likeable character of the bunch, as he's painted to be quite the douchebag.
I fucked Elizabeth before you broke up, before you're having trouble even.
He's a fairly insincere, superficial person, one of those high school studs that never quite grew out of being a scoundrel. He doesn't really seem to think very deeply about things, doesn't seem to care much for the people in his life. Of course, he cheats on his wife with Cynthia, and that's one of the integral storylines of the film. It's a catalyst for a lot of the drama and character analysis.
Hurts that you say that to me.
Come on, John, you're fucking your wife's sister. You're a liar, but at least I know you're a liar.
I know.
Now, despite characters like John being quite flawed, the film never depicts anyone like a one-note dick. I mean, John is a dick in many ways, but he's a believable dick at that.
Dinner was very good.
Yeah, it wasn't bad, honey.
Thanks.
Usually Ann achieves a kind of critical mass with the salt, but tonight was...
I'd say Gallagher is the weakest performer of the bunch, and that's not to say he's bad or anything, just that he's the only actor that gives any slight indication that they're acting and that it's not a real person. I still really liked him in the role.
I fucked Elizabeth.
As I mentioned before, the intrigue of this film comes from observing these four people and contrasting them with one another. They all have varying mentalities around sexuality and intimacy, and the film allows you to pick up on these and compare them to each other. Near the beginning, characters like Cynthia and John seem to have a very upfront or simplistic approach to sex. Again, it's this thrilling affair that they enjoy together. There's not so much this meaningful or spiritual connection between them. The circumstances that brought them together are, all things considered, negative. Cynthia is doing this out of the resentment and jealousy she harbours towards Anne, her sister. John, we think, is just doing this to get his rocks off. There is some later indication that he may be doing it out of an insecurity himself, but we'll get to that later. The point being, it's this lustful union. It's exciting, but not overly meaningful.
Drive safely.
Yeah, right.
One of my favourite moments of the whole film is when we're shown one of these sex scenes between Cynthia and John, and then it transitions to a scene where Graeme and Anne are just sat talking in a cafe.
Can I tell you something personal?
It's up to you. Can I tell you something personal?
Yeah.
Again, we have the voiceover first that leads us into the second scene. It's also done in such a way where at first it seems like it's Cynthia talking when it's actually Anne talking from the next scene.
Can I tell you something personal?
The second scene consists of Graeme and Anne having this very personal and tender discussion about sex and intimacy. They reveal a lot about themselves in very forthcoming ways, despite this being the second time they've ever interacted. Graeme has just come into town and has only met Anne because he used to be friends with John in high school.
I'm impotent.
You're what?
Impotent.
You are?
In a slightly different context, seeing Graeme and Anne be this open with each other this early may come across as jarring, but because of the way that they've been set up, it's totally earned. And just the way the scene is done, you can buy this conversation occurring naturally despite how personal it does get. Based on what we know about these characters, it all makes sense. Anne is a very contemplative and thoughtful person. Graeme is this idiosyncratic guy who's very direct with his questioning, and the chemistry between the two characters is instantly apparent right from their first scene together. Good lord, the chemistry, like both the physical and the verbal, you could cut it with a knife.
My therapist.
You're in therapy?
Aren't you?
No, I'm not.
And you contrast the closeness of Graeme and Anne with the detached sexual union between Cynthia and John in the prior scene. The irony of the second scene being endlessly more intimate than the first, which is depicting literal intimacy. One couple are in bed together and the other is sat in a public cafe fully clothed, and yet the bond between them is greater. Immediately the film is opening up this extremely thought-provoking discussion about what it is to truly be intimate. We use the term being intimate with someone to refer to sex, but is that really applicable when sex can be so detached? It raises an interesting point about the nature of sex, how just because two people are physically together, that doesn't mean that there's a deep bond between them, a bond that true intimacy requires you to have. The actual discussion that Graeme and Anne have in that scene explores these ideas further.
I think that sex is overrated. I think that people place far too much importance on it. And I think that stuff about women wanting it just as bad as men is crap.
We learn that Graeme can't get an erection in the presence of another, and we later learn that he can only get aroused when he's watching videotapes of women reveal intimate details about their sex lives. Graeme seems to have this fixation around the idea of truly knowing someone. He only feels close to someone when he feels like he's had a deeply revealing glimpse into who they are sexually. Seeing into their inner self, their inner sexual psychology, is more meaningful to him than seeing them nude. It's this mental undressing that arouses him. The tapes he keeps have the outward appearance of sex tapes, but in many ways that's what they are. They're intimacy tapes.
Isn't this how you get off or something? Taping women talking about their sexual experiences?
Yes.
Graeme sort of resides on the extreme end of this philosophy about sex being meaningless without a significant understanding between the two parties. Physical intimacy is near enough impossible to him if there's an absence of emotional intimacy. Anne's intimacy issues stem from a similar place, though not quite as severe. We learn that she's lost almost all sexual interest in her husband, despite him being a fairly conventionally attractive man. What really attracts her to someone, however, like Graeme, isn't the physical. Her marriage has become empty and loveless, and so her yearning for sex has withered along with that. Again, she's introspective and emotionally mature, so she's not interested in base pleasures. She yearns for a meaningful connection with John, but it isn't there because John has a very surface level mentality around sex, and also he's cheating on her. It is subtly conveyed in that opening scene that Anne is subconsciously aware that her husband isn't committed to her anymore. On some spiritual level, she can sense that something is off, and this is inferred with the pairing of the visuals and the voiceover.
They're fine, except for I'm kind of going through this thing where I don't want him to touch me. But...
When did you begin having this feeling?
Well, last week. I don't know, I got this really strange feeling and just didn't want him to touch me.
And so it only makes sense that Anne and Graeme do become attracted to each other in that scene in the cafe. There is a palpable sexual tension in that scene. The body language alone says it all. It's so wonderfully acted and it's amazing, the chemistry between those two actors. Through the act of talking about sex, they learn more about each other sexually than through the actual act itself. The scene also touches upon how men and women approach sex and relationships differently. Graeme even has this one line.
I remember reading somewhere that men learn to love the person that they're attracted to, and that women become more and more attracted to the person that they love.
I do think to a certain extent this is profoundly true, but the film doesn't insist that it's the end-all be-all.
I'm just quoting.
That's another thing that I really like about this film, is that it doesn't draw any hard lines in the sand about what it's saying. It just opens up a discussion and explores all of these different ideas. The film doesn't really offer up a concrete statement, more so it just showcases how sex and intimacy are intertwined. Graeme has this personal rule that he only takes advice from people he's had sex with. The way he puts it is from people that know him intimately. It's quite a strange rule, but it stems from his views around sex. He sees it as this profound union where two people reach an understanding. There's a sharp contrast to someone like John, who's just trying to get his rocks off because he's bored of his wife. I think the film highlights the perfect examples of meaningless and meaningful sex. It shows us how one should approach the act mentally. It's not supposed to be this singular transactional thing.
Meet me at my house in exactly 1 hour.
You are scum. I'll be there.
Cynthia is shown at the beginning of the film to have a blasé attitude towards sex. When she sleeps with John, it's the far more cynical kind of intercourse. In this situation, her desire for sex stems from something negative. It's this jealousy towards her sister once again. It's this insecurity she never felt like she was as sexually desirable as Anne. Compared to Anne, she's a lot less emotionally mature and sort of just does things impulsively. As soon as she gets the slightest sense that Anne sees something in this new Graeme character, she immediately jumps at the opportunity to go and sleep with Graeme. Like, if her sister wants it, she must have it. However, when she does go over to seduce Graeme, she winds up having her own psychological examination when Graeme asks to tape her talking about her sexual experiences. This is actually the first time in the film where we see a videotape being recorded. It's our introduction to the concept. And it's not presented as this creepy thing as many other films might do. She's more than comfortable to do it, she consents. What precedes is extremely therapeutic for her, and for the viewer it's the first time we really get to see within her soul. All of the surface level traits are stripped back and we really get to just examine who she is. Because it is so personal and revealing, it is almost inherently sexual in a way, the whole process. Like Graeme was right, sex is the art of knowing someone intimately, and to know someone intimately is sexual. It's clear that Cynthia reaches some form of sexual enlightenment from this. Throughout the rest of the film, she's far more secure in herself, she's less combative, she's calmer with her sister, and it could be because she's finally had meaningful intercourse, so to speak, in the form of this exercise with Graeme. Right after she leaves Graeme, she goes to have sex with John just to get that release, and it's clearly the most meaningful sex she's ever had in her life. Once it's over, she immediately tells John that he can leave, she doesn't need him anymore, that's the last time they have sex in the film. She's had this epiphany, she's comfortable in her own skin, and she no longer relies upon John for attention or pleasure. It's a great character arc, it makes her one of the most interesting characters of the whole film.
You can go now.
Arguably the only one of the four who doesn't self-reflect or develop in any way is John. However, that isn't to say that we don't get any insights into why he is the way he is. In the scene where Anne asks him if he's having an affair and it turns into this argument, there's one line from him that could be an indicator as to why he is cheating.
Every time I try to touch you, act as if I'm dipped in shit. I think there are a lot of women out there that'd be glad to have a young, straight male making a pretty good living.
In his mind, he did everything right. He worked hard, he became successful, he got a nice house, like he's a good looking guy again, so when his wife isn't interested in him sexually, it confuses him. It's like, why? It's because you're a boring twat. But no, perhaps he does have this sense of, am I not good enough? Like, what's wrong with me? We do only have this one line to go off though, we can't really be sure. I still do think that he is just a horny guy who's trying to get his rocks off. Quite a selfish person, doesn't really think too deeply about things, doesn't think about how his actions affect other people. Honestly, it's best that he didn't have this monumental turnaround, because if every character just like, oh, I've had this come to Jesus moment, it would have felt a bit too twee, too ideal, too unrealistic. It works so much better that he just sort of stays the way he is.
I fucked Elizabeth.
And again, like I mentioned before, him being a sleazebag didn't make him any less interesting because he wasn't presented in a one-note fashion.
I can be happy without a marriage, but if you take away my work, I mean, that's different. And if Anne can't handle that, you know, that's her problem.
And the film has the perfect climax where Graeme is made the subject of the final videotape. He gets this therapeutic deconstruction. We learn that he used to be a pathological liar, and this is what's caused him to have this fixation on authentic truth, so much so that he's almost this perfectionist. We learn that the actual reason he's back in town is because he's come to see his ex-girlfriend that he still isn't over. This old relationship that was ruined from him being a pathological liar, and he's come back to show her that he's changed, to show her his authentic self, as if that's gonna like fix things or like set everything right.
I wanted somebody who was very important to me to understand that.
And this makes all of his past actions seem like one giant procrastination, like he's obsessing so much over the idea of intimacy without actually romantically engaging with anyone. We see him now at his most vulnerable and exposed because he's been this soft-talking, slightly detached person throughout the whole film, but now he's actually under scrutiny. He's a bit defensive and on edge. It's him having the root cause of his deep-seated intimacy issues directly acknowledged, and now that they are out in the open, they can be dissected and hopefully healed. It should be noted that the scene actually starts out with Anne as the subject of the tape, but she soon turns it around on Graeme. But whilst the spotlight is on her, so to speak, we do learn that a lot of her hang-ups regarding sexually promiscuous activities do stem from her not wanting to be like her sister. But the overall idea is that this final videotape serves as the penultimate therapy session for the two of them. It's like a mental cleansing. I'd also just like to point out that the scene starts when John goes to watch the tape after the fact, so we see it from his perspective, like as he sees it. He plays the tape, watches the TV for a minute, and then it just cuts to the actual scene, which is really cool.
I've thought about it.
Did you act on it?
The film ultimately has a positive ending. The final shot is of Anne and Graeme basically being together. It makes sense, they're much more in sync emotionally, they have incredible chemistry, and they've both been healed to a certain extent. All of their intimacy issues have been addressed and dealt with, and hopefully they can move on and have a healthy relationship. Healthy relationship? This really is fiction. Now, if you wanted to draw some conclusions from this film, fair enough, but for me, it's just about observing these four people, all with their own unique sexual hang-ups, all with their own odd and sometimes negative mentalities around sex that we as viewers can learn to avoid, perhaps. What it's saying about sex and intimacy on a wider scale is that the two are intertwined, sometimes literally being the same thing, as again, sex is a form of intimacy. But it's also somewhat a warning not to conflate the two, because they aren't exactly the same. Just because two are sexually intimate with each other doesn't mean that there is this profound bond happening. The mere act of sex doesn't always count for a meaningful connection. However, it also cautions us against fixating on the idea of true intimacy to the point where we actually sabotage our own prospects of being in a romantic relationship. Graeme is the extreme example. He may seem like a Puritan, but he is extreme in his own way too. All of these women he videotapes, in many ways he's being promiscuous with, because to him that is a very intimate experience. Getting all these women to reveal these things about themselves that probably should be reserved for a significant other, all for his own therapy. Again, I'm not too keen on drawing any hard lines in the sand regarding what this film is saying. For me, I don't have to extrapolate a message because the experience is the catharsis. The ideas and sentiments it's putting across are ambiguous and non-verbal, but still very much there. And the only thing that you need to take away from this is that this film is a tender, thought-provoking piece that you should all see if you haven't already.
Things are getting complicated.
No, they're getting real simple.
Thank you so much for watching, and special thanks to those who are seeing this because it means you've made it this far into the video. But yeah, do go and watch this film, it's incredible. I can't emphasize that enough. I gave it a 10 out of 10 on IMDb, which I hardly ever do. Like, I give films 5 stars on Letterboxd all the time, but a 10 out of 10 on IMDb, just something different about that. There's something purer. It is currently on Netflix, at least in the UK's version, so yeah, go check it out. That's Bacho out. Thanks to the patrons. Thank you Matt Delaney, thank you Mason Lydon, thank you DF. I used to be a bit of a compulsive liar.